On the extreme southwestern edge of the Iberian Peninsula, right across from the coast of Africa, sits a geographical glitch. You have striking Mediterranean architecture, overshadowed by a massive limestone rock, all while a bright red double-decker bus rolls down the street. Walk down the street and the illusion continues. You'll find iconic British telephone booths resting directly against the rocky Spanish terrain. This tiny 6.8 square kilometer slice of land boasts a GDP per capita higher than both the United Kingdom and Spain. A massive commercial shipping fleet, alongside thriving finance and online aiming sectors, fuels a modern economic boom. But that prosperity faces an immediate threat. In the 2016 EU referendum, 96% of the local population voted to remain, yet they are being dragged out of the European Union regardless. For a territory that generates its own wealth and manages its own internal affairs, the pressure to remain in the EU is immense, raising the question of why they don't simply separate from the UK and chart their own course. So why can't a society of 33,000 people simply choose their own geopolitical destiny, the way other European microstates do? The answer has nothing to do with modern politics. It traces backward to a few sentences drafted by European monarchs over 3 centuries ago. The modern citizens living here are trapped in a geopolitical limbo, held captive by the antiquated ink of an 18th century contract. To understand this trap, look at the physical geography. This map highlights the Strait of Gibraltar, a choke point spanning exactly 14.3 kilometers between Europe and Africa. Any power holding this bottleneck dictates the flow of global maritime trade across 3 continents. Thastor, energetically recognizing this value, an Anglo-Dutch fleet opportunistically bombarded and seized the underdefended rock in 1704 during the War of the Spanish Succession. That brief, violent skirmish created a permanent geographic anomaly, a foreign military fortress bolted directly to the Spanish mainland. The fortress's existence is dictated by Article X of the 1713 Treaty of Utrecht. Britain claims the territory based on a phrase stating it is handed over in perpetuity, but Spain arms itself with a different clause at the end, the right of first refusal. This flowchart breaks down that clause's rigid logic. Britain has exactly 2 options: keep the territory forever or hand it back to Spain. Granting Gibraltar independence is legally categorized as abandonment, triggering an automatic return to Spanish control. By treating the land as a simple piece of royal property to be hoarded or traded, this 1713 agreement intentionally deleted any concept of self-determination. Spain never fully accepted the reality of this treaty. Over the centuries, they launched massive military blockades to starve the rock, most notably during the Great Siege of 1779. That hostility carried heavily into the modern era. By 1969, Spanish dictator Francisco Franco decided to isolate the territory completely. Franco ordered the border closed and cut off all telephone and ferry communications. He intended to cripple the local economy and force a surrender, but the strategy backfired. The shared experience of decades of isolation fused the civilian population and the military garrison into a specific identity, the Gibraltarian. The data proves the strength of this identity. These pie charts show the results of referendums held in 1967 and 2002. In both cases, over 98% of voters overwhelmingly rejected any transition to Spanish sovereignty. Spain's attempts at isolation backfired. Instead of breaking the population, these pressures consolidated a military outpost into a community with a defined political will. Today, that independence is colliding with the reality of Brexit. The local economy relies heavily on an open border, with 15,000 workers crossing into Gibraltar from Spain every single day. Negotiators proposed a unique compromise to keep the border completely fluid, bringing Gibraltar into the European Union's passport-free Schengen zone. The catch is the enforcement. A Schengen agreement requires European Frontex border guards to control immigration directly at Gibraltar's airport and port. For Gibraltarians, allowing foreign guards on their soil violates the very autonomy they endured centuries of sieges to protect. Madrid is arguing its case using an 18th century real estate contract, while Gibraltar demands recognition under 20th century United Nations laws on human self-determination. 2 modern allied democracies remain locked in a Cold War over an archaic legal loophole. The empires that drafted those treaties have faded, but the rock remains physically permanent, towering over the shifting politics of the continent. The people of Gibraltar are no longer a territorial asset to be negotiated between capitals. They are a distinct community, asserting that their own consent is the only legal basis for their future.